Hey, do you remember Spectrum? If you do, you're old like me. So come on, let's go play some bingo and sit in our rocking chairs and talk about the good old game. While I do the unthinkable and turn some of my favorite Spectrobe lines into Pokemon. And if you do remember Spectrobes, tell me down below what your favorite Spectrobes line is. And I'll explain a little bit about what Spectrobes is, don't worry. So, if you haven't heard about Spectrobes, or, just like things being Pokemonified, come with me. I'll show you something special. Grandpa's got you sorted. Alright, so let me put on my glasses here. Spectrobes was a sci-fi action role-playing game. Yep, that sounds pretty cool. Developed by Jupiter, and published by Disney Interactive Studios. What? That's right, baby. The rat overlord himself decided he wanted a slice of that juicy Pokemon pie back in the day. As someone who loves Pokemon likes, I'm always chasing that similar high, so Spectrobes was such a vibe for me. It felt high budget for a game on the DS, and the creature design slapped. Well, as hard as they can when you have these low poly models and barely any official art for them. Ain't got no artists like Sugimori around these parts. But hey, Spectrobes, you need an artist for the next one? I got you. Next one. There ain't gonna be a next one. Spectrobes is unique and very special. Spectrobes weren't just creatures roaming around the world like Pokemon, no. They were actual fossils you'd dig up and revive, much like Fossil Fighters, doing a very similar minigame as well. It was my jam doing that. I'd do it just, for hours, just excavating things. The coolest thing though was that Spectrobes actually reflected their concept as fossilized things brought back, with many of them being very much based on sort of ancient concepts like ancient samurai, deities, and even sometimes architecture and art. You even got the boots, you got the bootstrobes. And to really juxtapose our fossil adventures, the whole game was a sci-fi ROM. I blame this for me being such a sci-fi head these days with our heroes Rowland, that's not a name, and Gina, that's a name, but not like that, fighting creatures known as the Crawl. They kind of look like those things from PokéStar Studios. Yep, you don't fight other Spectrobes, well, in the first game at least. You fight these bigger nasties, and Spectrobes are the only creatures that can actually fight back with them. Yeah, that's right, Spectrobes are the Xenoblade. Here I'm doing art of our first and arguably most famous Spectrobe, Komainu. Looking like a mix of a koala and a lion dog. Well, their name literally means lion dog, so there's that. I can see the appeal, it's fun, goofy, and a real good start to us talking about the Spectrobes and their evolutions themselves. Look at this little cutie, they make a great Pokemon. Could even see this being a fire-type starter, but they never stay cute for long, do they? Oh my, no they do not. So, save for a few legendary Spectrobes, every Spectrobe is a free-stage line and works differently to Pokemon. Your first stage, called Child, were only overworld following creatures. With them, you'd use their radar powers to find other fossils and items and minerals to help level up your Spectrobes. Literally using them to find their own replacements, that's very cool. They also come in different flavors, colors. Now, to evolve each Spectrobe, there were different requirements across the game. Just pick a lane, guys, but yeah, either level, minerals, or incubator, they would evolve into a battle-ready form. Komainu would then become Komonoto. Bigger, chunkier boy, and with a lot of design motifs, just the swirls. Spectrobes have a lot of swirls in their designs, and this is where a big separation between Pokemon and Spectrobes comes in. The adult and evolved forms are much more over-designed than Pokemon. And while over-designed in Pokemon is seen as a bad thing, for Spectrobes I think it works very well in its favour, and creates some really wild and pretty sick designs. These adult Spectrobes can battle with you in kind of an action RPG fighting where you control Rowland and scrap with the Crawl, while you give some commands to your Spectrobe, and in later games play as them. Then in Origins, doing Wii pose BS to fight, I guess. Combat was simple, but fun enough to keep little me wanting to come home from school every night to play. I told you, it's a big change. I'm going to take a page out of Hisui and Growlithe's line here, seeing as it's the same inspiration for the design, and give it the fire and rock type. And if you thought they were chonkers here, get ready for the evolved form. With a whole bunch of training, we finally get our evolved Spectrobe. No, seriously, their final forms are just called evolved, which is an interesting choice. Almost all the evolved Spectrobes are wild with patterns and spikes and swells and oh my, they're really cool. They knew what they were doing here, making them crazy enough that a kid looks at them and goes, "Whoa, I want that one!" And Commodorus is absolutely one of them. This giant Komainu with just all these flame swirl motifs all over, making it look like it's bathed in flames. And heck, it's even got these like chain axes on it. It makes you think of kind of a literal stone lion statue come to life. In Spectrobes Origins, it did get a bit of a redesign, which I took a bit from for the Pokemon. It's a shame we don't have more full proper art of the many Spectrobes that there are. It's kind of an injustice, I tells ya. Because some of these just look like a mess of pixels that when you screenshot them from the game that I can't really understand them. But now is also a good time to mention there are variants of Spectrobes as well, and something I think Pokemon should adopt one day. With 1,000+ designs, I doubt it though. Each custom part would either boost attack and lower defense or vice versa. It's a small thing, but along with the color changing aspect, it's a degree of customization I'd honestly love to see in Pokemon. This absolute unit has a bit less random bits all over it, but I'm kind of in love with its Pokemon form and absolutely makes a great Fire Rock final starter. Oh, it kind of gives me chills looking at it. Let's jump into another design I love. Well, the final stage I love. The first two stages aren't exactly memorable to me. There are plenty of child Spectrobes that I don't really remember, because most of them, at least in the first game and the second one as well, required to be at least placed on a timer or fed some minerals to evolve. You'd only really become attached to like one child Spectrobe who would be the one that kind of searches for the minerals and stuff. So Aoi here, a weird little dart glider bird, went completely under the radar to me. That isn't to say the designs for child Spectrobes are bad, mind you. The further into the series you get, they become much more memorable. And yes, if it wasn't clear, this game had 3 games in its series. It didn't do too badly. I played 1 and 2, but never was able to find the Wii game Spectrobes Origins, but I do enjoy their designs quite a lot. Now, to people who don't know, Spectrobes had a sort of Pokemon and me camp, picnic, whatever mode, way before Pokemon. As you'd put Spectrobes in these little type-themed spaces and throw minerals at them like apes at a zoo. Just don't fall in, small child. It formed a lot of memories for me. This little Amelia Earhart looking Spectrobe becomes a classic normal flying type, and while it isn't the most flash hot looking Pokemon, its evolutions go pretty hard. To me, the adult Spectrobes feel like a big jump in design from the child, and I think that's intentional. Going from passive, non-combative to combat-oriented, both in design and mindset, is pretty cool. So then going from adult to evolve, feeling not as big of a jump, but a kind of natural step is a pretty cool touch. A lot of smart design choices went into the evolution. Well, some Spectrobes do go a lot further than others, like this cube that becomes the TF2 Engineer's turret, to literally Golurk's cousin. There's plenty of variety in Spectrobe's design, and it does feel like there's at least something for everyone here. I haven't really talked about types for the Spectrobes because they're a bit loosey-goosey with them. In the games going from 3 to 6 through the series, and it does worry me that they didn't have all of the gameplay elements down pat, was probably a misstep. In 1 and 2, we had Aurora, which was kind of like wind and nature. Flash, which is water and ice. I'll be honest, I feel like they should be switched around, but whatevs. And finally for fire, we have... Oh no. Guys, I don't think the Kroll are the biggest threat in the galaxy. In Origins, they just changed the names into Fire, Water, Earth, Plant, Sky, and Clear, which isn't really a Spectrobe property, as only enemies really have it, but I don't know, it kind of loses the charm when you change it to them. Aoba makes its transition to the Flying and Psychic type here, really starting to round out the design, but its final stage is my favorite of the 3, oh yeah. Aoba, I don't know how to say it, is one Spectrobe I want to talk about a little more in depth, as it is one Spectrobe I think shows a real strength to the designs of them. This could easily be a legendary Pokemon with little to no actual changes, a box legend even. It could even be a Digimon with a few tweaks, and honestly I could say that about most of all Spectrobes, as it all feels a nice niche in between of the two that give it its own identity. Many quote-unquote Pokemon killers don't try to do anything wild with their art style, and so it makes many designs just not hit right. It's why Palworld, I know I mentioned the Unmentionables design, usually are relegated to the conversation of, it's just a Pokemon from the dollar store, or it's stolen the model, or, you know, it's a Rule 34 hot or not video tier. But Spectrobes don't really rely on any of that. I can't attribute a single Spectrobe to a Pokemon fully. Even Spectrobes based off the same concept, like the Genies are their own wild robotic monster designs, and it's just so cool to see kind of the same concept in very, very different designs. Aoba translates pretty good into a Pokemon style, as long as you get rid of some of the parts of it, mainly the added like energy sword wing parts there. I could imagine them sprouting out when doing certain attacks, but not being there constantly. The crystals on their hands and tail are enough for that, but I think it turned out well, you know, for someone who's not really a big fan of flying type and bird Pokemon. I like a lot of the designs I do for them. Whoops. Our great Aoba flies through the air with a flying and psychic type, and would even make a great pseudo-legendary Pokemon line, I'd say. I decided for the final Spectrobe line of the video I'd do the Riser line. They feel like a bit of the poster child for the second game, and was used a lot to promote the Dark Spectrobe. Now, Riser themselves aren't actually a Dark Spectrobe. We got our Sonic here, and we get the Shadow in the Dark Spectrobe, which are just the names rearranged. Spectrobes that can't have the custom color or parts, but are generally stronger but with less HP. Before I got the second Spectrobes, I did hear about the Dark Spectrobes, and I legit thought that these guys were already just Dark Spectrobe, like an evil version of Komainu or something. I actually think that this line here has a lot of similarities to something like the Shinx line, in kind of feeling, and I guess they're both kind of cat adjacent. Riser is an electric type that is sassy and full of anger, and that may never change as it evolves. Its next form, Rygazelle, is absolutely insane in its design, even more so than Aoba. Like, this thing would be a final form Pokemon and still be over-designed. It's a super cool Panther-like Spectrobe decked out in these sharp, jagged armor pieces, and it very much feels a bit like an Aztec sort of design with the armor and creature itself. It is hilarious though that their name is a combo of Raijin, which makes sense, and Gazelle, because I don't know if we have noticed, but this thing ain't a gazelle, but I'll be honest, the Spectrum names don't really get stuck in my head, or some of them just don't make sense like Pokemon. But I appreciate that much of them do have a very good flow to them between evolutions. You can see that I had to severely tone down the design for it to fit a mid-stage Pokemon, but the more I look at it, it'd make a great fit for a Champion Ultimate Digimon, actually. It's great to talk about a series like this I'm very fond of, so Grandpa's very happy you all are here listening to him waffle on about funny little creature game. Rygazelle jumps from pure electric to electric steel type thanks to those armor plates on his body, but we aren't done yet. No, we're going further beyond. Funny story, the Japanese name for Rhydrake actually references it's a leopard, not a drake. A weird choice, but I swear I, Mandela affected myself into thinking this thing only had 4 legs. But no, it's got 6, and if that isn't just the sickest actual design choice ever, I don't know what is. And this is what I meant by going further beyond. This giant 6-legged panther decked out in blades and metal and just, wow, this thing has a lot going on for it. Mega Digimon looking lad here. Although Rygazelle makes me think of, I guess, Aztec design, the armor for Rhydrake gives me like Gothic architecture feelings, and it's really interesting that I can make those connections, and I don't think it's weird. I just go, hell yeah, man, that's an ancient civilization creature or something. Notice how I've avoided talking about the story. Well, I think it's something you should find out for yourself, but also there's a lot to it, and I wanted to gush more about the designs than anything else. But hey, if you can get your hands on the game, I'd very highly recommend trying them out. They're actually really fun. Rhydrake keeps their electric steel typing, getting an extra pair of arms and Skarmory-like wings, which they use to stab and rend any foe that gets in their way. So that's Spectrobes, a game that is near and dear to my heart and many others. Heck, there's still active Twitter accounts talking about it to this day, even asking for a Switch 2 port, which I would love, and like a free pack version of all the games, yes please. I feel like if Spectrobes were to be released in this day and age, it would have done so much better as well. In a time of the internet where marketing would have worked so much better than, back then. So much more broader now and easy to market to people. Heck, it worked for Yokai Watch. So here's the deal, Disney, give me Spectrobes, I'll handle everything with it, and we'll personally do art of each and every Spectrobe. I'll be a one-man Spectrobe revival plan, you just watch me. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Tell me what you thought of the video below. I know that it was less talking about the designs and waffling on about a game, but I hope you enjoyed some of it. Hey, and share some Spectrobe stories of your own if you have some down below, you oldies, and make sure to like and subscribe and share the video around with other Spectrobes fans. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time where we go back to doing good old just Pokemon design. No more crazy crossovers. For now.